28-year-old former ballerina Ashley Benefield ran to her neighbor's house on the evening of September 27, 2020. She said she had been attacked. She also said she shot her attacker, a man named Doug, her 58-year-old husband. Ashley and Doug were in the middle of a nasty custody battle over their young daughter, a battle that included serious allegations by Ashley, including being poisoned by her husband. But the judge in the case did not believe Ashley and her allegations, and there was a big upcoming court date in their case in front of the same judge. That hearing never happened because Ashley killed Doug. Ashley is now charged with murder and claims self-defense, although she has never given a statement with her version of what happened that night. She did, however, testify in the custody case, and tonight we'll take a listen to her testimony and have our voice analysis experts take a listen to see if there are any indications of whether or not she is telling the truth. Plus, the victim's cousin and family spokesman joins us live for our in-depth coverage of the Black Swan murder trial. I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. Great to have you aboard. Big hour coming up. You know, I was a prosecutor. I've told you that tons and tons of times on the show. That's how I see the world. That's the filter, all of that, right? Very upfront about it. But when I was a prosecutor, a lot of people would ask me, you know, was it scary? Did you feel like it was dangerous, you know, being in the courtroom with criminals and trying to send them to prison? And I would always say, no, when you're in a courthouse, the criminal court is not the most dangerous place in that building. The most dangerous place is the family courtroom. Family law is brutal. And it's brutal because it's not about, you know, a couple of dollars here and there, or, you know, am I going to plead guilty to drug possession? You know, no. It's extremely personal, and it's just filled with emotion because you have people who at one point, you know, are in love, who are now breaking up, and, you know, one might be trying to get at the other one. There may be children in the middle of all of this, and there's a fight for custody. There's a fight for the pet dog. I mean, things get ugly, and again, filled with emotion. And because of that, people act irrationally. And sometimes really bad things happen. I've covered stories and trials through the years where judges and lawyers have been killed in family law cases. Once in a blue moon happens in a criminal case. You know, it might be a gang-related case. There's a witness waiting outside and something happens, right? But it's rare. Family law. I mean, there was a story out of Reno involving a guy involved in one of these bitter breakups and battles. Shoots and kills his wife. Gets a rifle and he's shooting out the windows at the courthouse, going after the judge. I mean, this stuff, it completely irrational. So from my perspective, that's where things get dangerous, and that's where litigants can get extremely dangerous. Let's talk about Doug and Ashley Benefield. They were in family court, and she was accusing him of some serious allegations. It's really a matter of custody for their young child. It's very emotional. These two had this, they met and were married within 13 days. So it was a really quick love affair. They were together for a few years. She gets pregnant, and then everything falls apart. But again, the emotional part of it, and whichever way you look at this case, whether you believe that Doug Benefield is a guy who just can't let go and is stalking Ashley, or you believe Ashley is someone who will do anything to get custody of her child, it's clear that the emotions are all over this place, all over this case, and is the reason that Doug Benefield is dead. Whichever side you want to believe, or whichever side the jury ends up believing. But they were in court already in this custody battle, and someone had to determine who was telling the truth. And I said serious allegations by Ashley Benefield against Doug. And it was all about her credibility. And in that case, the judge did not find her credible. Did not find her credible in the custody battle. Now we're in a criminal courtroom, and it won't be a judge, but it'll be a jury who will have to decide whether or not she is credible. She shot and killed Doug, but she's claiming self-defense. There's no other witnesses to this. It's not on video. So despite the fact that she's never given a public statement about what happened that night, she'll have to at the trial. I don't see any way around it. She's got to tell the jury what happened in the moment that she shot and killed Doug. She has to. I mean, not legally compelled to, but if you want the jury to come back and say not guilty, you've got to tell them what happened. Now, she's made allegations in the Stand Your Ground hearing where she didn't testify, but through the pleadings, the papers submitted by her attorneys, that she was scared, she's an abused woman, and they relied upon a lot of the allegations that were made in the custody battle. Now, the custody battle was recorded, not on video, but audio recordings. So I'm going to play for you now some of the allegations and some of the testimony of Ashley Benefield and what she said was happening in this relationship, which was certainly relevant to the Stand Your Ground hearing, where we're still waiting for the judge's decision. And if it goes to trial, may very well be relevant at the murder trial as well. So let's take a listen.
That was probably one of the first things that had started, was a lot of kind of verbal scare tactics, I suppose. I had known he was in the military, but he had told me about how he was an angry person and how he had been raped as a teenager, and that he went into the military because he was angry and it was a good avenue for his anger. He said that he is a good killer because he's angry. He had insinuated that outside of the military that he had connections and that he could kill people, that he could make people disappear, that he had murdered people, poisoned people, that he had gotten away with both, and that he could do it again, and that nobody would ever find out and nobody could ever prove what he did. He came home from work early, and I was in the bedroom, and he came in, and he immediately became very angry and started accusing me of not loving him, and said that if I had loved him, that I would have responded with a kissing emoji or a heart back. At one point, he had turned to walk away from me, and he was standing in the opening of the closet, and I was standing right on the outside of the closet, and he turned around and he punched a hole through the wall with his fist. He pulled the gun out. I believe it was in his boot, and he pulled it out, and he started waving it around. It was unholstered at the time. He then threw the gun facing me. It missed me. It hit the wall behind me, and it punched a large hole. He started screaming, and he told me that, this is a quote, that he was going to blow his brains out. And so I stopped, and I dropped to the floor, and I started crying, and I begged him to not shoot the gun. And he said that I was going to have to watch him shoot his brains out. And I was screaming and asking him not to. I told him I wouldn't leave. I was literally on my hands and knees. And he, I guess at some point, discharged the gun. I didn't see him aim it at the ceiling, but the bullet went into the ceiling. I had been trying to figure out for a while how to get out.
Get out of what?
Out of danger.
Did you feel in danger?
Yes, I did.
And so what did you figure out?
Well, I realized that since I was in Florida already, that it was a good opportunity to just not go back, and that I knew that my mom would let me stay.
Okay. Did you go back to South Carolina at any point in time after August 26th?
I did twice. On September 18th.
September 18th, meaning after he was down for the storm?
Correct.
You went to South Carolina and did what?
I knew that he would be busy with the media that had come for the launch of the ballet company, which was set to open on September 18th, so I knew he wouldn't be home. So I went to the house and I grabbed a bunch of my clothes and things out of my drawers that all belonged to me. When I had been brought down to Florida, I didn't have anything with me.
So you went in the home, took your physical possessions?
Correct, yeah.
Did you take anything of his?
No.
Did you leave him a note?
I did.
Okay, and what did you tell him?
I outlined some of the reasons why I was leaving and doing what I was doing. I explained very clearly how he had scared me and that I wasn't okay with the way he was treating me. I also talked about the different problems that there were in the house.
What did you tell him about the abuse? The same things we're talking about here?
Yes, I also included several incidences where like he was angry while he was driving, and he scared me. Like one time he actually like ran up on a curb, like through grass, almost hit a tree because he was yelling and screaming at me. He made like a U-turn, drove home on a road that speed limit's probably like 25. He was probably going 50, 60. Pulls into the driveway. I thought he was going to just drive straight through the garage. He slams on the brakes and was yelling and screaming at me. There had been multiple times where he got angry while he was driving. Even when he brought me down to Florida, he got angry while he was driving, and he would drive erratically. And I would cry and I would beg him to stop. I sometimes even asked him to like pull over so I could get out, and he wouldn't.
Okay. And so did you file anything in South Carolina to keep him away from you?
I did the order in November.
So in November, you went to court on the domestic violence in South Carolina?
Yes.
And when you went to court in front of the judge in South Carolina, did you ask the judge to prevent him from being around you?
I did.
And did the judge issue a restraining order?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, again, this is in family court, and stuff gets ugly in family court. So let's hear from the other side. Joining us tonight from Atlanta, Georgia, Doug Benefield's cousin, family spokesperson, Tommy Benefield, back with us. Tommy, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Vinny. We appreciate your coverage and your fairness on all this.
Okay, I want you to respond to a couple of things that we heard that she testified to there. And again, I read decision. The judge heard the decision during the hearing that the judge in this custody battle did not find her credible, but she said that your cousin joined the military because he was an angry person and a good killer, and he was raped.
Well, I helped Doug get in the Navy in the first place, and he actually entered in a program where the Navy would put him through flight school, and as a payback, they would put him through medical school. And that program was why he went into the military in the first place. When the program stopped, he decided to go ahead and go in and continue flying off aircraft carriers for 3 years after that. I wouldn't say anger was ever a part of it. I certainly was closer than anyone to him through that entire period, and that was never part of the deal.
She also said that he was a good killer and he had murdered and poisoned people. Did he? And if he didn't, who do you think she's referring to? Or do we not even know?
Well, I would say Doug wouldn't have said those things in the first place. Second of all, when people think of special operators in the military and post-military, you probably think of Jason Bourne and how he's able to do all these things. Doug was the tech side of things. He was the communications guy. He was the guy who invented technology that's coming to market, even in the months and years to come. But that was where he was, not on the, physical side of it or the spy out there doing Mission Impossible direct stuff. He was the tech guy who supported other people.
That makes more sense to me. How about some of the allegations? And again, in what she's describing, it doesn't seem that she's alleging that she's ever been physically hit by Doug. didn't necessarily hear that. I don't know if I missed it. It just seems like she's saying that he's punching walls, he's throwing guns, he's firing guns into the air, he's screaming. What do you know about the relationship and Doug and these allegations?
Well, there's two things to support the fact that Doug was not that way. Number one, there was never, ever, even through just a month prior to Doug's killing, any accusation that he was physically violent ever to Ashley, ever in the relationship. On the gun stuff, Doug admitted when he made mistakes a couple of times, both in the first trial in trying to get access to their daughter, in the 2018 trial that you played. But the difference was the night that they met, she was at a Secret Service presidential candidate event, Ashley was, and had a gun in her bra that night. She had always carried. And matter of fact, what came out in the trial, the Stand Your Ground hearing last Thursday that we didn't know, was she had staged 2 guns in the house the night of the killing, in addition to her regular concealed carry gun, which was in the closet where Doug, you see the blood stains where Doug was shot and ended up on the floor. So if anybody was, working the gun program, he made the mistakes. He admitted to them. That was all admitted in court in 2018. The box you're showing is where she had hidden the gun in the kitchen. The other gun was the one that was in her backpack. And the other gun was actually in the bedroom, stashed away so she could shoot him in the bedroom where she did. The judge really in 2018, the reason that phrase, and we were very surprised on Thursday that her defense attorney used the phrase scintilla of evidence, because the court, the judge from the 2018 trial absolutely admonished her for lying and deceiving, and for Doug admitting the minor things that he had done, minor to some people, but certainly over almost a 5-year relationship, he made mistakes. He admitted to them. He went through counseling to confirm, and all the testing that was done on him didn't show anger at all.
She also made an allegation that he was threatening suicide, that he would do it in front of her. What are your thoughts about that?
That certainly wasn't the Doug that Eva knew, his daughter, or any of us in the family knew, and especially his best friend in South Carolina, who married him those 13 days after they met. That would have never been what Doug would have chosen to do. What is a pattern here, and it came out in court on Thursday in the hearing, is Ashley tested on Dr. Broder's testing, where he was testing and evaluating both Doug and Ashley in the summer of 2020, just before the killing, that a clinical score, a significant score on a deception scale is a 70. And in Dr. Broder's report, Ashley's deception scale is a 92, nearly off the scale in deception. And that's what seems to be the pattern all the way throughout. She was deceiving him on the weekend that she killed him. Up until Sunday midday, they were all moving in together. It's what she told him consistently through the reconciliation process. They were pulling their divorce papers. They were getting back together. She told Dr. Broder in private, of course, that she was never going to reconcile, that she was just trying to get the case to Maryland to start over with a new court.
Tommy, I guess we're waiting to hear the results of the Stand Your Ground hearing, and obviously we'll stay on this story, but we appreciate your time tonight and your insight, because when it gets to trial, Doug's not going to be able to speak on, for himself. So when this stuff,
Yes, sir.
when this stuff comes up, a jury's going to hear it, so it's going to be a lot about her credibility in the moment, if and when she tells her story about what actually happened. Tommy, thanks so much.
It was a shocking front.
Yeah.
It was a shocking Friday morning, and you understand that when they'd arrested with none of their 9 witnesses and she didn't testify, everyone was shocked.
Shocking. I'll be more shocked if she wins without presenting any of this evidence, but we'll see what happens, and we'll be speaking again. Thanks so much, Tommy. Appreciate it. All right, folks, when we come back, we said it's about credibility, right? And you know, is she deceiving people? Well, we're going to play her testimony for some experts who can listen for things that we may not notice or hear, but they do. We'll do that, plus coming up next hour. In Orange County, Florida, the suitcase murder trial. Sarah Boone accused of locking her boyfriend in a suitcase and taunting him while he died. The case has had 12 trial dates and 12 delays. What's going on? Tonight, we hear from Sarah Boone.
What else can I do? Who else can I seek help from? I have you and God, Judge Wooten.
These are the cases that captivated the world.
Couldn't keep my life straight.
That demanded our attention.
They were killed by their own children.
That challenged the legal system and ourselves.
How in the world can a mother wait 30 days before reporting her child missing?
These are the trials that became legendary. And now you can relive them all in one place. Court TV Legendary Trials. Go to courttv.com/legendary trials to find out how to watch.
He pulled the gun out. I believe it was in his boot, and he pulled it out and he started waving it around. It was unholstered at the time.
There's Ashley Benefield. Will the jury believe her when she finally testifies, if she testifies, at her murder trial? She's claiming self-defense. There's no other witnesses. She's going to have to do it. She didn't do it at her standard ground hearing. But when we talk about her credibility, is there anything that we can hear in her voice that would give us an indication that she's under some stress, perhaps not telling the truth, being deceptive? Let's bring in our special guests. Joining us in Bradenton, Florida, voice stress analysis expert Jerry Crotty. In Orlando, Florida, jury consultant, human behavior expert Susan Constantine. Also in Orlando, Florida, statement analyst expert Bruce Jacobs. Great to see everyone tonight. Thank you for being here. You do stuff that none of us can do, certainly. Susan, any initial statement you want to make about what you've heard from Ashley Benefield in general in the way she testifies?
Yes. So when I'm listening to her testify, which is, I'm going to come off the grid a little bit different from what the judge thinks, because I didn't find anything that was highly significant that was directly associated with strong deceptive indicators. I felt when I listened to her voice that it came across to me as credible. But what she does do is she tends to kind of fabricate or omit information. She doesn't give you all of the information. So she leads you to believe she's giving you the full truth, but really what we're getting is niblets. So the fact that he's not asking really probative questions to kind of increase cognitive load, it was very difficult to find a real true, I gotcha kind of moment.
Okay, let's get back to some more of that testimony. This is her on cross-examination, which is always a little bit more stressful and difficult than direct. Let's listen.
In your testimony a few minutes ago, you said that Mr. Benefield pulled the gun out of his boot. Is that what happened?
Yeah, I believe so.
Well, you believe so or you know so?
I remember him pulling it out of his boot.
All right, because in your sworn petition for dissolution, you claimed that he pulled the handgun out of his waistband and started waving it around in the air.
And maybe it was his waistband, I'm sorry.
Jerry Crotty, your thoughts as you analyze her voice stress here?
So what's interesting about all of this is that I hear a lot of people saying, like, she doesn't sound like she's scared when she speaks. And fear is one of the emotions that you really can't put any type of, definition to. And so that's what's nice about using the voice stress analyzer, is that you get to use it in a non-biased way. And when I analyzed all of her comments that she made during that hearing, she was pretty truthful about the events leading up to, when he decided to pull the gun out and say he was going to kill himself. That is when I started to see a little bit of stress occur, but it could be just because of the event. However, when I analyzed the cross-examination, I did notice that, one of the things that I teach people is that if you want to see if somebody's being deceptive or not, ask them a yes or no question. And if you hear anything other than yes or no come out of their mouth, there's some deception associated with it. And her answers were really off. It's like the one you just heard a minute ago, where she says, "I believe so." That is when she really started to show some stress. And I would say that she was being deceptive about most of those answers that she gave in cross.
Let's take a listen to a little bit more here. This is involving an incident involving punching a hole in the wall. Let's listen.
He started accusing me of not loving him and said that if I had loved him that I would have responded with a kissing emoji or a heart back, and that he started accusing me of possibly having a relationship with somebody else. So this just proved that he loved me more than I loved him. I, of course, told him that, none of that was true, but he became more and more angry, and he, at one point, he had turned to walk away from me, and he was standing in the opening of the closet, and I was standing right on the outside of the closet, and he turned around and he punched a hole through the wall with his fist. And I was standing on the other side of the wall, and the drywall literally came out and hit me in the face.
All right, Bruce Jacobs, what are you hearing?
Well, I'm going to have to agree with the other two. I didn't see any glaring signs of deception here. A couple things that I got out of that paragraph that you just read. She says that he felt offended. So I'm thinking to myself, if I'm going to testify in court, he was angry, he was mad, and that's kind of a professional term. He felt offended. And then a couple sentences later, she says that he was angry. And she also says the exact location of where this incident happened. I mean, she's like, I was standing here, he was standing exactly here. And there's a 70% chance of conflict if the exact location of the incident is mentioned. So that kind of stood out to me. Going through her whole statement, she only uses the word "we" twice. And so we is a partnership. So she definitely was distancing himself in the relationship or in the total statement by not using "we." She said when we got married, and she said we enjoyed hot tea frequently. So she changed her pronouns, but that was the only time she used "we" in the whole statement.
All right, here she is on cross-examination, Susan, talking about this hole in the wall.
When the dispute happened, you're saying on April 14th, where you say Mr. Benefield trapped you in the master bedroom and prevented you from escaping. What was the dispute about that day?
I don't remember.
Was it about Eva?
I don't remember. Was that the day with the text messages? I honestly don't remember.
This is your sworn petition, so I'm asking you what happened. Isn't it true that you were in fact following Doug around the house, berating him about his failure to discipline Eva the way you thought she should be disciplined?
No.
All right. When he punched the wall, isn't it true that the wall had already been cut out because the ADT alarm system was being installed?
Not to my knowledge, no.
All right, Susan, what do you think?
Well, her pitch changes. I think that you guys will probably notice that too. When she says no, she kind of goes into this kind of soft pitch. So it's still ambiguous. That's all I'm trying to say to you. It's not clear and defined. But what I do want to share with you is that thread through her entire conversation, she really profiled who he was. And this is a guy that was highly sensitive, very emotional, and really had a high level of significance. And when she rejected him, or he felt that he was being rejected, he becomes very angry and enraged. And that's what I think. I think the dynamic of this relationship was really more about that he was not getting what he wanted or reciprocated back, which enraged him she can probably tend to be a little bit cold or aloof, which probably didn't set it off. So, you know what happens, like a family mediation, I do those too, and it's crazy. It's one of the reasons why I don't do it, because these things get very highly emotional and people start swinging and slinging mud.
Absolutely. All right, our experts are staying with us. When we come back, we're going to talk about probably the most serious allegation that was made by Ashley Benefield, that Doug was poisoning her and the baby. That's next. When Alyssa Turney vanished in 2001, police thought she was just another runaway.
That was the last time that anyone saw her alive.
But a social media campaign ran by her sister led to a much darker discovery.
Now, Alyssa's stepfather will stand trial for her murder.
But without a body, can prosecutors prove their case?
The Missing Sister Murder Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings at 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
They found heavy metals in your daughter as well?
Yes.
Okay, and all those reports have now been admitted into evidence, correct?
Yes.
And do those reports cause you concern based on your reading of them?
Yes.
And why?
Because they're not normal levels for either of us to have. They're very high levels of strange metals that are not necessarily common.
Okay. And when your daughter was born, she had these heavy metals in her system?
Yes, the meconium would have been dated back to the early weeks of gestation.
Okay. And they're the same heavy metals that you have in your system, correct?
Yes.
All right. That's the allegation, the heavy metals. That's the alleged poisoning. And Ashley Benefield saying that she's being poisoned by Doug, her husband, and the baby's being poisoned as well. Still with us, Jerry Crotty, Susan Constantine, Bruce Jacobs, our experts. So, Bruce, I'll start with you on this one, on this allegation. What are you hearing anything in that part?
Well, what stuck out at me when she said she said not necessarily common, and then she laughed. To me, that's not a laughing situation. So this should be very serious. The fact that she laughed about it is a big red flag for me.
All right, let's take a listen. We've got a big chunk of her talking about what she said she was going through and these allegations. Let's listen.
You start to live full-time in South Carolina when?
I would say in December of 2016.
All right. And you're in fine health other than your hamstring recovery in December of 2016?
Correct, yeah.
And did your health take a downturn?
It did.
When did it start having a downturn?
I would say by January I had started having weird symptoms. The first and most noticeable was just extreme fatigue.
Okay. And did the extreme fatigue persist during the entire time from January of 2017 to the time that you stopped living with Douglas Benefield?
It sometimes was worse than others, but yes, it was pretty consistent from that time.
And the day that you fixed that you moved out from his home was when?
August 26th, 2017.
Of 2017? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And in the course of living with Douglas Benefield, would he serve you food or anything that you would ingest into your body?
He would. We both enjoyed hot tea frequently, so he had begun a habit of bringing me breakfast in bed. He would also, multiple times during the day and a lot of times in the evening when we would go to bed, he would make me a mug of hot tea to go to bed with as well.
Okay. Was there ever anything about the tea that he would serve you that caused you concern?
Yes, on multiple occasions I told him that it didn't taste right. It was a lot of times very sweet to the point where I was so nauseous. I had gently tried to ask him to not make it so sweet because I like honey in my tea, and so he would put honey in my tea. And he multiple times got very upset and offended. If I didn't finish the tea that he brought me, he would get upset. One time I told him that I didn't feel well and I didn't want to drink it. and he started yelling at me, and he called me an ungrateful and said that I was lucky that I had a husband who would make me hot tea, and that it proved that he loved me, and that if I loved him, that I would have just been thankful.
All right, Jerry, what are you hearing? What does your analysis tell us about her allegations of the poisoning here?
So the commentary that she's giving her opinion on what happened. And if she's seeing a report that says she has these metals in her system and her child has these metals in her system, I think this is how she kind of, came up with this is what happened. And so when I analyzed the statements that she was making, it's truthful. There's no stress in any of her statements. There's no stress in any of her answers that's given. So I believe that she really thinks that this is what occurred.
Fascinating. Let's listen to the cross-examination.
You said that you were sick from January 2017 forward. Is that right?
I began displaying symptoms around that time, yeah.
I'm going to show you what has already been admitted as your Exhibit 6. These are your low country OBGYN numbers. You recognize these?
Yes.
Looking at page 39, do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you see in the middle of that box, it says, denies lower GI symptoms. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Has regular, normal formed bowel movements without pain or bleeding. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Denies urinary
Is that a
symptoms.
yes or?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I see that it says that, yes.
Okay. Denies new or acute muscle or bone pain. You see that?
Yes.
Denies skin or hair changes. Is that correct?
Yes, it says that.
And these are all statements that you made to your doctor on April 26, 2017. Is that correct?
That's what's recorded in these records, yes.
So are you saying is Low Country lying about this, or is this an accurate reflection of what you said to the doctor?
I believe it's fairly accurate. There are multiple times in the records that I have been reviewing over the past couple months where things aren't what I said they were, and they were written incorrectly.
Okay, here, look at the bottom. It says, husband is here, very supportive, and agrees that she has not been depressed or anxious. You see that?
Yes, he went with me most everywhere I went.
Susan Constantine, your thoughts?
Boy, oh boy. I think that, part of what she's saying is true, but I also think that she's probably has some sort of she's like hypochondriac, I think. And when she's talking about these illnesses, she, again, to what Jerry was saying, is that she's not associating some of these symptoms to what the attorney is alleging. She's saying that she felt nauseated, right? She got the teas and so forth, and she felt nauseated. She didn't say, I was vomiting, I was throwing up, forget that word, and going to the bathroom and diarrhea, whatever. She's not even talking about that. She's saying, I feel nauseous. I think that was truthful. And again, here's the issue is, if she believes that this is true, this is really what's happening to her, that's her reality. And that's what we're dealing with. It's not necessarily that it's truthful, but it's her reality of what was happening.
Let me ask you, Bruce, if a jury, when she testifies, if she testifies at trial, will get to see her as well, how much more revealing would it be for you and everyone else here tonight if you got to see her testify as well as hear her testify?
Well, tenfold. We watch people's body language, their facial expressions, their micro expressions, their body gestures, the voice inflections. So she was pretty monotone in her whole testimony, even in a cross-examination when she was being asked questions. She didn't really lower her voice. She didn't raise it. But watching a video and being able to see her live, that'd be a lot better. It'd be golden.
Yeah. Susan, how about being able to see her testify? How significant would that be?
Yeah, and so what we're looking at is stimuluses, what question was asked, how is she responding? Like Jason was talking about, what expression is she emoting on her face? What is she leaking out? How is her body language, her gestures, all of that speaks volumes. So we're only hearing just one piece of it, even though voice stress analysis is really the bomb. I mean, really, this stuff is really highly sophisticated. And statement analysis is too. But when you combine the body language with it, now it really pulls the whole picture together.
All right, so Jerry Crotty, give us the bottom line of your analysis of Ashley Benefield. Like what was going on here? Because obviously we had a judge who didn't find her credible at this hearing, and there was other evidence, there were experts who testified, et cetera. So there's a lot more to it. But what's your bottom line with her as a witness?
I think she really believes what she's saying. Now, if it's true or not, that's completely different ball of wax. To see her testify would just open up a whole new world, because the words that are chosen when someone speaks is only a very small percentage of communication. And so you have to see the entire picture in order to be able to tell if somebody is being truthful or dishonest or somewhere in between. And I think that if she does testify, I think that it will be very eye-opening for everybody.
And one final question. Bruce, she's a ballerina, used to performing, great posture, all of that. How do you think that would impact her as a witness?
Well, the leakage that we're talking about is fueled by the limbic brain. So these are survival instincts that we don't have control over. So you could fake microexpressions, but you can't control them. The nervous body gestures and stuff like that. And the gestures that I'm talking about are not caused by nervousness. They're fueled by the limbic brain. So I don't think it has any impact that she, is a ballerina at any point.
All right. I was curious. I know everyone at home was curious as well. Jerry Crotty, Susan Constantine, Bruce Jacobs. Great insight tonight. I know your time is valuable. We really appreciate it. Thanks so much.